I don't like the wheel of death, man. Well, Jim,
Hey.
Jim Zub, Grim Jim Zub. I love that you
Thanks,
all
man.
have like your own little monikers that are next to your name. I just love that, man. I feel like Jim, well, I think everyone knows who you are, but just in case, man, Jim Zub,
Sure.
writer, creator extraordinaire, has worked
with
all the top publishers, and now you've kind of, like, I don't want to say something out of turn, but I feel like you've kind of taken the lead with Titan, with everything that's going on with Conan. We got so much going on. I feel so spoiled as a Conan fan. It's like more Conan than you could almost handle.
Don't think of it as being spoiled. Think of it as you're just desserts, man. Like we are trying to deliver, the best adventure comics in the industry. That's really what it's all about for me. Is like Sword and Sorcery Overdrive right now in the best way possible. I mean, I am the flagship writer for Conan the Barbarian at Titan, working with Heroic Signatures, and it's been a real dream come true. And this whole year, we launched the new series last summer, and we came out of the gate really, really hot, and people were super excited. And I know a lot of the feeling was like, well, can you keep that momentum going? And it's like, I'm thrilled to say that through 2024, we have, really just been like a meteor. Like, it's been amazing. It's been a really, really cool feeling. The readership's been awesome. The retailers, reviewers, everyone's been really, really sweet on the series. And we've been able to keep that, keep that fire burning really, really hot. So I am so pumped. I'm pumped for, what we just had come out. Literally Battle of the Blackstone wrapped up, last week. And we've announced, that's the one. And just, huge response from retailers and readers, which has been amazing. And then we're already ramping up our 2025. And, the Free Conflict Day issue got announced, which I've been, keeping that card close to my chest. And that's been very, very cool. And now we're just, honestly, I am, busting around so many different Conan stories and Robert E. Howard related stories right now. It is a real dream come true. There's art coming in almost every single day from amazing artists that it's an honor to be working with. And these are our creative partners, and they are putting their blood, sweat, and more blood on every single page, man. It is the coolest feeling.
Yeah, no, it is amazing. So we got, I believe, is it 17 that came out today?
Yes, 17 is in stores today. Yeah, so that's the kickoff to a new story arc called Twisting Loyalties. And what we're doing is two-part stories. So previously we've had these story arcs that are always 4 issues, and now we're doing these two-parters, and they do have a link between them, but they're also distinct. And so people are going to get this nice adventure with a cliffhanger in the middle and then a payoff. Just really kind of old school in that way, where we want to harken back to that feeling like every issue. Like I think decompressed storytelling is really cool, but it's just one tool in a broader toolbox. And it's kind of nice to get back to this kind of pulse pounding. Every issue is just jam packed with stuff, and that you feel like, I'd rather have readers feel like, oh my God, there's so much happening, than feeling like, hey, there's not enough, kind of material in there. So that's something that we very much wanted to have. We wanted to have that real classic kind of 2-issue bump and really rocket some really cool adventures. We've got 2 different art teams for the 2 different stories. And Doug Braithwaite just drew Frozen Faith, which was, our take on the Frost Giant's daughter, and it went over really, really well, even better than I could have imagined. And so Doug's taking a 2-month break. We've got Danica Breen. She stepped in for 2 months, and then Doug's right back. So Doug's doing the second 2-parter. And then we've got even more crazy, exciting things to come in the new year and into the spring and summer. It's just going to be cool.
Yeah, and you got some pretty amazing artists also on covers with Dan and Joe. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, there's a ton. It's just so beautiful to see.
No, everyone, honestly, that, we've because the book launched so strong, we had a lot of artists that I've always wanted to work with, reaching out and getting in touch with us. And that's been really, really, heartfelt and amazing as well. You look at someone like, Alex Horley, who is this phenomenal artist who's done Conan artwork in the past, but I don't think has kind of gotten his due. And now he's done a handful of the comic covers and the magazine covers, and people are like stopping and taking notice, like, oh my God, look at what this guy's capable of. You know, classic artists, obviously, like Joe Jusko, you know, Dan Panosian's genuinely one of the best cover artists in the industry. Like every time I see him deliver something on a book, I am awestruck at what his artistry, his the variety of compositions and colors, and the way he's able to compose a scene. Sometimes he does really super tight focus stuff on characters' faces, and other times he just blows out these wonderful, amazing compositions and environments. And you're like, yeah, this guy's doing covers for us. Like what an honor it is to be working with people like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He is so phenomenal. Even the stuff he's doing outside Conan. I don't know if you've watched some of the stuff he's done with Nightwing and the new Absolute Wonder Woman. I mean, those covers are.
He is a dynamo right now.
Yeah.
I don't even know how he's able to put out so many different covers in a month, but he is just on a tear like I have never seen. And his quality just seems to be going up and up and up every time I turn around. He is just stellar. You know, obviously someone like Roberto de la Torre, who launched the book with us, you know, he's I know a lot of fans have been asking, like, when's, you know, de la Torre coming back? Where's he at? Because last time you guys saw him on Interiors was in issue 12, but Rob's been doing a Savage Sword story with Roy Thomas. So he's done this epic black and white. I saw the issue. It is going to blow people's minds. Like you're going to get this, you know, issue of Savage Sword that is just going to be transcendent. Like it's some of the best Conan artwork you have ever seen with, you know, the grandfather of Conan comics. You know, it's a hell of a team up. And, I can't wait for people to read it. And that's about as classic as it gets, you know? And so then after that, okay, like Rob's not going anywhere. He's doing some covers for us. You know, he's doing pinups. He's not vanishing, but at the same time, he's been doing this slow roll on this epic story, and then he'll be back in the mix. So it's been amazing seeing the response to his artwork. You know, he's just kind of gone through the stratosphere in terms of fan response and people knowing his stuff. And then, you know, Doug Braithwaite is someone who's been in the industry for a long time, but he's not really, a lot of people I don't think realize the depth and breadth of his skills. And then you realize how phenomenal an artist he really is and how consistent he can be. This Conan stuff has been some of the best work of his career. And I am so fortunate to be, you know, in the mix on that and to be talking with him. You know, last month I was in the UK and I finally got to hang out with him. So we went out for dinner twice and had these really long conversations. After dinner, we went out to a pub and I literally got to kind of verbally lay out some of the big mythic stuff that we've got coming in the months and years ahead. And his eyes were just kind of getting wider and wider as I'm telling him all the crazy stuff we have coming down the pipe. It was great. It was such a good feeling. And to know that you've got collaborators like that that are passionate about the stuff, just like I am, you know, it's the best.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, he's got 25 plus years in the industry as a top artist. I mean, people should know who he is. He's incredible. And I think it was a really good balance between Robert and him up until the issue 12. Rob did kind of go on to do other things. I love the back and forth between them, right? And I think there's certain stories where certain art works a little bit better than others, right? I think that's okay too, right? You could tap into that strength because they each have a different style, very unique to each of them. And I thought it was a lot of fun. I love that. I mean, Conan has always been that book you kind of jump in at any time because they are, you know, short arcs of stories. And I think that's why Fandom has been able to grow so big is because you don't have to know like this long history. You could kind of
Conan is really, it is one of the easiest books to jump into. It's easier than any kind of superhero continuity. Like it's my job to know where all the beats are happening and what that broader story is and the geography of the Hyborian Age. You as the reader, your job, especially as a new reader, is to just dive in and know that Conan is the original kind of sword and sorcery wandering warrior. Wherever he goes, something fucking amazing is going to happen. Something awesome and badass and action packed. And that's my job, is to deliver on that. And so you can find out more about the Hyborian Age and the different kind of influences or the geography of it or the different time periods of Conan's life and things like that, how it relates to the original Robert E. Howard, you know, stories. And that is a level of knowledge that you can enhance yourself with, but it's not required in any way, shape, or form. You're like, is Conan in his impetuous, you know, youth? Is he a thief? Is he a pirate? Is he a leader of men? Is he a king? doesn't even matter. Whatever adventure you're plugging into, this guy's a badass and something cool is going to happen.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, Rob says he's been buying every issue and every variant cover, really enjoying the
That
new
is
run. With you, Rob.
on honor. When we have customers like that, like people, readers who are contacting me and they say they're tracking down every single cover, or they've been, buying multiple copies or giving them to friends, as gifts for the holidays or for birthdays or things like that. It is really, really an incredible, thing to hear from people that they are that committed to the series. I did a signing in Nottingham when I was traveling in the UK, and a gentleman came out there and he literally brought a short box, like probably 200 comics of just Conan's. And I sat there and I signed them for about 45 minutes while we had a conversation in between other people signing. So other people would get stuff signed. And then when the line would end, I would sign some of his. And then at the very end, it was just me and him sort of hanging out. And he was telling me about growing up reading Conan, and like, when he was in the hospital and getting Savage Sword was like a big deal to him, or like, things like that this was just sort of part of his youth, part of his fandom now, and being such an intrinsic part of that in the here and now is a real honor. When you realize you're part of that grand kind of legacy of one of the biggest genre characters anywhere, like a lot of people don't realize Conan's older than Superman by 6 years. It's like being able to be a part of it. It just, the first time I got to write a Conan story, like Conan Red Sonja, that Gail Simone and I did together with Dan Panosian, hilariously enough, that at that moment, that was really special to me. And it was such a milestone for me. And I thought, man, this is the only time I'm ever going to get to ever, work on one of my favorite characters. Of course, in the rearview mirror, it's crazy when I think about how many, issues I've been able to work on, how many stories, and now to be at the sharp tip of the spear, kind of charging forth with this publishing initiative. It's really, really, really special. But all of it kind of started there. And I mean, honestly, it started even earlier than that. I've mentioned this once or twice on a couple of interviews, but it's pretty deep cut. My first credit in comics. So before I was known as a writer, I worked as an illustrator and a colorist. I also did some editorial over at the Udon studio, but I did coloring one summer for Udon, and they were recoloring the old Conan reprints when Dark Horse got the license, and they were bringing them back. Wow. So I colored like 3 issues of Conan that were reprinted multiple times in different formats for what was called the Chronicles of Conan. Like I've got one.
That's awesome.
So that cover there is one that I colored, and then I colored like 3 stories in this volume. And it's like, that's my first publishing credit in comics as a colorist, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever, like getting a credit in a comic book. Oh my God, that's my name right there. To think that whatever, like 12 years later, I would have my first Conan writing credit. And now, this is just like mind bending to me in the best way possible. Yeah.
In the best way possible. Yeah.
In the best way possible.
Yeah. And what you all are doing with Conan. I mean, I was so excited to see that Savage Sword would be continuing as well. Yes. I think, is anybody surprised that it took off the way it did? Or did you? I mean, that was going on. That it would be that
it's easy to look and say, well, of course it was going to be huge, but I don't think it was. Retailers can be quite fickle about this stuff, right? You've got a weird format. The magazine format is a pain in the butt to rack. It's a pain to bag and board. It's a pain to put in people's pull files if you're used to regular standard comics. And a lot of people say they will buy stuff. You see people all the time. Artists will post online and they'll say, check out this piece of fan art. And someone will say, oh, is there an art print? Is there a t-shirt? And then these people will run and they'll make them, and then no one buys it, right? Like, it's easy to say, oh, that's what I've always wanted. Oh, it's perfect. Like, that's as easy as a tweet or a Facebook comment or whatever. But putting your money where your mouth is, like, do you really want this? Are you really going to pre-order it? Are you really going to make it, And so when we did the 6 issues and we were going to do it every other month, that was an experiment. It was an experiment to see if people were going to put their money where their mouth was, if they were going to really come out in the numbers that were necessary to keep this format going. and not just a brief nostalgia play, or that's cool, I get issue 1 and 2 and then I'm done or whatever. And once we realized it had legs, then it was about, okay, we've got to build out another year worth of material, and that's an active process. And it sounds easy to say, oh, okay, just ask people, or there must be tons of people contacting about doing work for the books, and it's like, sure there are, but what's the right mix? And short stories versus longer stories, and interconnected stories, and which characters, because you have a bunch of the Robert E. Howard characters that we're trying to also elevate. And what are people's schedules? It sounds all good to say, well, put the best artists on the book. You're like, sure. The reason why they're the best is also because they're in demand, and so it's trying to find the right schedule, the right timing, the right budget, all that kind of stuff. I'm so glad someone like Jeff Isherwood, who is a classic artist associated with Conan, is able to come back and really show what he can do in 2024 with a character that he was associated with 25, 30 years ago. And that's so awesome. But it's not always like that. It's not as simple as just saying, well, get Joe Jusko to do every cover. You're like, well, Joe's a very busy guy. He's got a lot of, demands on his time. So of course we want to do more work with him, or of course we want whatever, Dan Panosian or anyone else, Liam Sharp.
Yeah. Oh, I love him too.
Carrie Nord, these are names
out of a Conan book, to be quite honest.
Right?
Sometimes
I know, right? It's true. But like these artists are in demand and they're phenomenal. And you're like, okay, what is the right window of opportunity, both in terms of their interest and in terms of our schedule? And so, Chris and Ashley on the Heroic team, they do the scheduling and the budgeting, and some of the keeping that stuff on schedule is crazy. Like, I'm talking to them all the time. We're having calls almost monthly about the schedule, about future planning. And, we're throwing stuff out about, okay, end of 2025, already heading into 2026. Where are we going to be, and how's it going to work? And you put those stakes in the ground as early as you can. And you say, okay, it'd be great to get this artist, or let's line up this creative team, or let's, make this thing happen. And then every time there's another call, you're like, okay, well, so-and-so's in, but we got to push this by a month, or this person's available now. Can we get them a script? And you're like, let's find a way to do it. So I'm getting art right now from probably just on Conan stuff, like 5 different artists. Right. Oh. So because we announced our next free comic day, which is going to lead into a 4-issue mini in the fall. And the one for 2025 is called Scourge of the Serpent. And I thought Jonas Scharf did a phenomenal job on Blackstone. And obviously Marvel thought he did a great job too, because they snapped him up. So he just did that 1 year later book for Ultimates, because they know he's just an absolute killer. Like, he's just a phenomenal artist. And so I can shake my fist and be like, damn it, I wanted Jonas to do another mini for us, but I'm super proud of him and super glad he's getting to do this cool stuff over at Marvel. Okay, so I need to find, another artist who can step into that role and deliver a level of quality that's going to work and going to, blow the tops of people's heads off the way Jonas did. Yeah. Cool, but not a clone of him. You just find, the right fit, and where does it go? Then you've got someone like Doug, or someone like De La Torre, or Danica, or there was an artist that I worked with on Savage Sword #4 named Fernando Dagnino, and he came to us highly recommended. He'd done some other stuff at Titan, and he's got a bone deep love of Conan, and I thought his sample stuff looked amazing. So we had him do that Savage Sword story, and it looked phenomenal. And I was like, what else have you got on your schedule? And he's like, I don't care. I'll drop anything to do more Conan. Great. Let's get him on something. Let's get him a cool story, and let's go, So like stuff like that is, it's a constant moving target, and it's in the most exciting way possible. Like, I don't want to sound like I'm, oh, woe is me. I've got, 5 artists doing wicked stuff for me. But it's a lot. Like, from day to day and week to week, you sort of look and go, okay, is there anything smoldering? Is there anything we need to put a fire out, or has everyone got what they need, in terms of reference material, in terms of reading material, in terms of design work, because we want this stuff to be consistent, particularly when these stories are cross-referencing each other, back and forth as much as possible. So it's a wild puzzle at the best of times. And I'm like, never want to take it for granted, but the
Yeah.
ability to literally look and go, okay, a year from now, where will we be? And what do we need to have done between now and then? You know, that's the excitement of comic book publishing.
Right. Right.
My wife and I, we do this series of books called the Dungeons and Dragons Young Adventurers Guides. And they're a lot of fun to do. But in traditional publishing, like for an imprint of Random House, we finish a book and then those things come out 10 months later, you know, and that book is done, complete. And I try and explain to them how comic publishing works. And my editor at Random House thinks we're insane. Like, we're just like, how can anyone manage this schedule? Like you guys are changing things right up until print, or you're, you know, madly throwing stuff at the catalog. You know, it's just like, that's comics. I don't know. You kind of get used to it.
Goes, right?
Your hair goes silver and you just keep going. Like, that's just how comics work. You kind of, there's an adrenaline rush, stupidity to it that you just kind of take for granted after a while.
Well, you must love it because you just signed a deal where you're going to be doing this a little bit longer, right?
Yeah. So at San Diego, we announced that I've got a 3-year extension, which is, it's not unprecedented, but it's certainly unbelievably rare in the comic industry to
Especially
have that
today.
kind of, yes,
I think
in the
today
modern era.
rare. 20 years ago,
like I was, oh, it was sort of commonplace that people would stick around on books for really long runs, but the modern era, our attention spans tend to be vaporized almost instantly. You know, I was talking to Zdarsky about it, and he joked like I had the best deal in comics, and I said, well, you make more money than I do, and he said, well, sure, but and he might end up having, you know, like, there are longer runs, but they're not longer runs that, you know, are going to be that long. That's the difference. It's like most of those are 6 to 8 to 12 months, and you're looking over your shoulder like, is it my time? Like, is there a noose over me and I didn't realize? And you're just getting, or the big, you know, it's like a vaudeville stage and the giant hooks coming out and you're just getting pulled off, you know, like, you kind of don't know when it's gonna go away. The nice thing now is that we all agreed, okay, Jim laid out this big, crazy mythic plan. And at first it was a lot of what ifs, like, well, what if we did this over multiple years? And what if we had this big payoff and all this stuff? And everyone's like, sounds good. You know, let's get that first year underneath us and make sure it's working. And then we can plan for the future. But seed, you know, the ground there just in case. And by the time we hit like issue 4 or 5, it was pretty obvious we had something special in our hands, and the fans were responding so strongly and the retailers were responding so strongly. And it was like, okay, let's put a ring on this and really make this go, so that I have the confidence to build and you have the confidence to, you know, sell to retailers and to readers that this is going to be a winner for you, that this is going to come out, you know, monthly, that this is going to deliver what we say, you know, it will. And that was so valuable to me creatively. And it's like stressful in the sense of, okay, we've locked in for this amazing thing, but it's like freeing in a lot of ways as well, because I'm not worried about, well, what is my 2025? Because as a comic book freelancer, every 5-6 months, it is just vaporizing, or you get an extension that you didn't even plan for, and you're like, oh, now I have to make it seem like it was always meant to be this way. And I don't have to feel that way. Like, I know, you know, what we're doing. So issue 25 of Conan is going to be an extra special issue, obviously, and we wanted to make sure we had lots of lead time for that. And so the artist on 25, who I can't reveal yet, is already working on that issue. Like, issue 17 just came out, and like 25 is, you know, in production, well on production. And you're like, okay, great. 26 to, you know, like 30, we already know where that's going to be at and what's going to be. And so I'm able to write 7, 8, 9 months. It is more like a Random House kind of publishing schedule in that sort of way, that I know where I'm at and we know what those arcs are called and we know why. And one of the reasons why is because they want that stability, because it works better for a character like Conan, because it works better internationally for a property like Conan, where the foreign market doesn't want a new number 1 every 6 months. They don't want a new number 1 every 12 months. I don't think North American readers want a new number. I was just going
to say that, Jim. I'm not sure anybody really wants that. I know it definitely brings in spectators that want to get that number 1, which I understand that's part of the business model. But from a fandom that reads it, it's a little frustrating when you start over all the time, right?
I mean, it was crazy to me when issue 12 came out. I was getting fan mail from people that were saying, I wish there would be an issue 13. And you're like, dude, there is, like, there will be. They just assumed there wouldn't be, because that's such the nature of the industry. And I'm not talking one or two people, like a dozen people messaged me and were like, man, I really hope they give you another 12 issues. And you're like, dude, you have no idea. Like I'm currently negotiating. I want to be on this book till like at least issue 50. I got this big crazy thing I want to do, and never treating it like that's assumed. Like, I don't want you to feel like we're just going to rest on our laurels from whatever, 13 all the way to 48 or something. Like, every issue's got to feel like we're giving it our all. Like, it's a banger. Like, otherwise, if we're not earning that cover price, then it will erode and it won't stick around, So we've got that kind of intense energy that we're putting into every damn issue to prove that this should be in your pull file, that this has got to be on your reading list, that you need to get caught up in trades if you're not currently reading, because kick-ass amazing things are happening every single month, and surprises as well. I think that was when we were coming up with the concepts for the relaunch and everything else. It was that we couldn't just redo the classic stories over and over again. I love them. They're amazing. They're huge, influential parts of sword and sorcery, but everyone knows them. And it's like, you're not going to get a fan base excited if they're reading the next adaptation of the Tower of the Elephant. Not because the Tower of the Elephant isn't good, but because it's been done 3-4 times already. And you're just like, okay, that is well-trod ground.
Mm-hmm.
What made that story so special, and what can we do to channel that into new and exciting tales?
Mm-hmm. I mean, the understanding that you have of Robert E. Howard and his vision of Conan allows you to create some of these other stories, and it feels like it's coming from Robert E. Howard. And I do think
Thank
that
you.
that's
I never want to assume that we stand on the shoulders of giants, man. Howard stuff is so special, and I would never claim like I've got it, but I feel like we're doing our damnedest to respect it. That's what I feel, like we're doing everything we can to understand why a character like that has stuck around for almost 100 years, that is not the vast majority of characters that were created in the pulp era have vanished. You know what I mean? They just don't have any impact. But for some reason, there's a handful of authors and a handful of stories and a handful of characters that have lasted, on and on and on. And a lot of the icons we think of in comics are superheroes, and they have an iconic quality. And Conan is one of those characters from the pulps, like a Sherlock Holmes is another character like that. But even now, like, no one's freaking out about the next Sherlock Holmes. And yet, a handful of years ago with Benedict Cumberbatch, all of a sudden, that character can come back and can surprise people. There's always a way, and there's something hopefully intrinsic about a character or a world that you can remind people why it's so awesome, or what is, important about it. And that's what I feel like we're trying to do here. We've cleared a lot of the chaff, and we're just sort of like, okay, this is the core of the thing to us, and we're trying to bring that to you every month in a way that is as heartfelt and heart pounding as we can,
I couldn't agree with you more. I think being true to the original work as close as possible while telling new stories that seem like they would come from, and the consistency of the writer, I think are two things that are really important to have a good run that keeps people engaged. And unfortunately, we've gotten into this stage in comics where people are just bouncing around, people are doing their own thing, and I think that's amazing, because you want to own your IP. So I understand why people are doing that. But you kind of lose something, right? If you're like a Chip Zdarsky had a great run on Batman, and then he's leaving. I know we're going to get everything's going to be okay. But, if you're that fan of that style of writing, it's gone now, right? And so now you got to prepare yourself emotionally for that next arc that's going to be different, because be a different voice, and they're gonna look at Batman differently. What I feel Titan and what you have done is you understand the Robert E. Howard. You're staying true to that while telling other stories where it seems like he's writing it still, and that is engaging, Jim. And that's really hard to do. I think it's really hard to do, right?
I feel like I've grown as a writer in terms of my understanding of the material. And I had this unbelievable opportunity where I did it at Marvel. I learned a lot. Obviously, that got swept away when the license wrapped up there. And in the vast majority of cases, that would be it. You know what I mean? Like the next time you would see me, I would be doing a short story in some backup in some anniversary issue, or I'd be doing a short story in Savage Sword. It's like the all-star game. Like you come back out on the ice and you wave and you go, Conan, man, like check it out. The chance to sort of reinvigorate and go, no, what if the decks were cleared and we just like did this thing and blew it out? What is the dream list? What is the dream team? Like, what can we do? And then to have a publisher kind of respond like all thumbs up, like, let's do exactly what you want to do. And the mature reader's book, I think, is an intrinsic part of that, because the original pulp stories were very kind of salacious and shocking in their day for the kind of material they were doing. And I feel like it's an R-rated movie in the best way possible, and not in an exploitive way, in like an intense way. The violence is intense, the sexuality is intense, the stakes are intense, and we can really crank that up in a way that people haven't quite seen before on the mainline Conan book. And then on top of that, having that, hopefully, this long-term vision that people stick with us all the way through and see how far we can push it, see how big and how crazy and amazing we can go. That is a really, really special thing, to know that we've got the track to be able to do it, and the readership that is reinvigorated and along with us for the ride. And that doesn't mean we're going to be perfect. I was trying to explain to Titan, and I was sort of like, hey, the first 8 to 12 issues, I feel like are we're proving ourselves, obviously, in a big way, but it's like year 2 is kind of where we really need to remind people, like, hey, don't go anywhere. There's still very, very cool stuff going on, because that's where most publishers would slam the new #1 button. That's where most publishers would, do a reboot, restart, 100 variant covers, whatever. And it's like, okay, if we're not pushing that button, if we're not pulling that lever, how do we make sure that the readership knows how valuable they are, that this book is worth reading, worth following, exciting, not gimmicky, just like deep bedrock foundation of why this character works and why this property is so cool,
I mean, the way you get around that too is things like this.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Blackstone allows us to, the miniseries allowed us to, first of all, bring a bunch of other characters in who get to, all their ships get to rise on that tide of Conan. He's obviously, geometrically bigger than any other Robert E. Howard character. So then he can bring the shine on all these other amazing pulp characters and all these kind of genres. But it also allows us to break some of the rules that I've set up for the monthly series. Like the monthly series is always in the Hyborian Age, and the monthly series is always focused on, Conan first and foremost. And he's the driver, and little bits of what's happening above him, but the vast majority of it is his experiences in the moments that they're happening, just like the original pulp stories. But then Blackstone allows us to use the character and use the material that we built, mythically in the monthly book, and then blow it out on this grander kind of cosmic scale, different time periods and different kind of genres and milieus that we're able to bring into it. Other pulp adjacent elements of horror and adventure, but also giving you an experience that's different from the monthly book, and the fact that you can have in any particular month potentially 3 different Howard books coming out, right? So you've got Conan the Barbarian, Savage Sword, and Blackstone came out, and we didn't break people. Like we didn't, there wasn't a single thing that I've heard from retailers where they were like, okay, you flooded the market. Okay, there's too much. You've crushed us under this. Our subscribers are complaining. the kind of stuff that you normally hear off of event books, or you hear off of, line extensions to the point of vaporization. And it's like trying to, at every stage, very carefully grow and very carefully prove that this is worth supporting. The Solomon Kane book that just got announced on the cover of previews, we're super stoked about it. Patch has proven himself in Savage Sword and the backup stories he's been doing there, and that's very much in a classic mold. Like back in the day at Marvel or DC, a character would be appearing in backup stories or would be guest starring in other people's books, and then they would always say on the cover of issue 1, because you demanded it. You know what I mean? Like, but it's true. Like, that's because you've organically and holistically built a readership that is now interested in carrying on potentially with solo adventures with that character. Solomon Kane has been in comics before, but it's never been something that has been a long sustained kind of series. And so we're kind of tiptoeing into this space. Patch has got a great concept. His artwork's amazing. He's kind of a singular talent writing and drawing it. Awesome.
Yeah.
Let's see what the market, let's see what's possible in that space. And maybe it's just a mini series, or maybe it's a whole new kind of spoke of the line. You guys get to decide, retailers and readers to decide. That's what's cool. And hopefully at every step of it, people say, I got my money's worth every single month, because that's the job.
Yeah, the Solomon Kane. I was going to ask you next. That'll be its own title here coming up. Obviously, that is an offshoot of Battle of Blackstone, reintroducing a lot of these characters. And then I think you're tapping into those emotions of people who have read a little bit of Robert E. Howard, but you're also exposing a lot of amazing characters to new people. Did you get a lot of feedback from fans that Solomon Kane should be the next one? Was he one of the more popular characters outside of Conan?
I'd say it's sort of a tie. Like most people, it's either Kull or Solomon Kane are the ones that are kind of most well known from readers after Conan. And Kull obviously is more accessible in the sense of he is another kind of barbaric character, but a lot of times people assume he is just another Conan. And so we've got plans for Kull, but Solomon Kane felt like the easiest in terms of the distinction, right? He's in a totally different time period and a totally different kind of genre in a sense. It is not sword and sorcery. It's like supernatural kind of horror. It's this historical kind of horror. The character personality wise is different from Conan, but obviously compatible in a really, really cool kind of way. The time period is really, really fascinating. The history that you can weave into it's really fascinating. And so to me, it's just like gothic cool and amazing. And I know that Patch is like just marinating in it the way that I've been marinating in the Hyborian Age. And so it comes from a place of love of the character and love of the genre. And that doesn't mean that it's going to be, we're going to see how people respond off of it. But the initial announcement's been wicked exciting and everyone's been blowing up in terms of it, But if it comes from a place of excitement and enthusiasm and love for the character, that doesn't mean that we're not going to put them through the paces either. Yeah. I think that's another thing as well. Yeah, like I don't pull kid gloves on Conan. Like I want to kick his ass because he's powerful to take it, And I know Patch feels the same way. Like he's going to put that character through the ringer in the best way possible. That issue to issue, you won't know what's going to come next because that's the heart of great adventure storytelling.
Yeah, and I think it's just perfect timing too. I feel like horror as a genre has exploded the last couple of years as well. So I just feel like the timing is right for Solomon Kane and all the different adventures that will bring that kind of horror element, different timetable. But it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited about that one too. And then you announced, I saw on your Substack, your newsletter, that Heroic Signatures has a Conan the Barbarian, the Robert de la Torre action figure. Yeah. So I've already
there was some concept art
pre-order, but
oh, perfect, man. Yeah. So we showed some concept sketches of that at San Diego as, hey, here's something that could be coming. and the response was amazing. Now they finally got the prototype figures. And it looks so cool. And I know that if there's a really strong response and if the fans really come out in droves for it, that will not be the last one by any means. You know, there's no reason why we couldn't do whatever Solomon Kane or Dark Agnes or Brissa or, you know, Kieran and Conrad or just El Borak, I think seems like a natural. All those characters would make for really cool lineup, you know, and deservedly so. They're all such wicked characters. And obviously you come out of the gate with Conan and just make that as badass as possible. It's like I said, hopefully the first of many as far as that goes. Yeah, there's so much cool stuff in the pipeline right now. The Heroic team is so amazing to work with. And every time we have a call, it's like really, really exciting because I'm coming at it from, okay, here's the narrative stuff that I'm working on. Did you see the Kickstarter that was for the Conan Hyborian Age tabletop RPG?
Tabletop
so
game,
there's a new, so there's a new tabletop RPG from the guys that did the really awesome Conan board game. And so if you want to use your miniatures and stuff from the board game, you can, or if you just want to do what we call theater of the mind and it's all narrative, you can do that as well. They've got the quick start package that's available on their website. And then the game just finished funding on Kickstarter and they're going to be releasing that next year as well. I'm going to be doing, there's a couple game conventions I'm going to do next year. And I'm talking to them about running some sessions of the Conan game. So it's like, hey, come play the Conan game with the guy who writes Conan every month, you know? So I think that could be a lot of fun as well.
Did you have anything to do with the creation of the game at all, Jim, with your background with D&D and your passion around D&D? Were you involved in the game or the creation of it at all?
So I did play testing on it. So Matt John, he's a great designer. He's become a friend over the years. He's another Canadian guy, which is also really nice. And so we chat quite a bit in terms of back and forth. He's actually got a prose story in the new issue of Savage Sword. So he's also a fantasy writer. And so he just wrote a story in Savage Sword #6, which I think people are really, really going to enjoy. And so Matt's awesome, and he's got a really good head for this stuff. He's been working with Monolith for years. And so he sent me a lot of the pre-release material. And then in June at Howard Days, before the Quick Start package came out, I already had a pre-release of it, and I did several playtest sessions there. I ran it with like just a lineup of kind of Robert E. Howard luminaries, which was kind of amazing. So like, hold on, this one here, Mark Finn, he's the biographer who wrote the one of the best damn biographies of Robert E. Howard. He was in my playtest group at Howard Days. So was Jeff Shanks, you know, all kinds of, John
real
C.
life
Hawking,
Indiana
who
Jones,
wrote,
right?
100%. John Hawking, who wrote Conan, City of the Dead, he was in our playtest group. Howard Andrew Jones, who's a really well regarded and beloved, you know, sword and sorcery writer. These guys were in my playtest group, and I was, you know, game mastering them through a Conan scenario. We're all laughing and, you know, playing up on the
heavy hitters. Those are heavy hitters,
right?
Man.
That's what I'm talking about. And so it's like those people had a really good time and gave all their feedback and are deeply involved. Obviously, Jeff Shanks, you know, he writes the essays in the back of every issue, and he's become a really core part of our team as well. You know, Jeff's one of those people that early on I had just been introduced to him as, hey, this guy's a resource for, you know, he's a Robert E. Howard scholar and he knows tons of material. You should get on a call with him. He's really good people to talk to. And it's become a friendship and it's become a really cool bond. And so we talk all the time, and we're talking about the lore and we're talking about the potential. And then I'm talking about the big mythic kind of plans. And he's always plugging me back into not just Howard stories, but like Howard letters and poetry. He's also pointing me towards the source material, whether it was historical or fiction, that Howard grew up reading and deeply influenced his work. And so it's like the bedrock kind of primordial material that he read as a kid that got his brain going in certain directions. And you're like, okay, now you see these larger kind of patterns and hopefully can bring even more authenticity to it, you know, as we work away. And that's why getting him to he did an essay in the Free Comic Book Day issue last year. And then we said, can you do for each issue in the first arc, we would love to have him do some essays. And it was funny because at one point they were like, I'm sure he's going to run out of things to write. And I was like, Jeff, you're going to run out of things to write? And he's like, no. I was like, okay, cool. Just keep writing essays, man, like in every issue. Because I feel like it gives people a greater appreciation of the history of the material and the history of pulp and the genre and all the interconnectedness of this stuff. And second of all, it is another little bit of value for your cover price that you get this extra little bit. It's like the letters page. It's like anything else. You don't have to read it, but if you do, it will heighten, the experience. Yeah,
absolutely.
sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, he's amazing. I love listening to him. He is a walking
encyclopedia
of Robert Howard for sure.
And he's one of the most insane collectors too.
Is he?
That guy, like, he collects the pulps, right? Like he collects original copies of Weird Tales. He has first print releases of books and not just Robert E. Howard stuff, although that is a huge part of his collection. Like he has one of the biggest Edgar Rice Burroughs, collections. Wow. He has one of the big, just pulp magazines and golden age comics in general. He is one hell of a collector in ways that stagger my brain, Yeah.
I just need to get about $18,000 so I can get that Weird Tales.
The first one of Conan. Yeah, the Phoenix on the people like
the money. I have the heart.
Yeah. People ask me all the time. They're like, "Oh, you must have all that stuff." I'm like, No, I don't have any copies of Weird Tales. I don't have a Conan #1, like a 1970. Barry.
I do have that.
I don't yet. So I've been tempted. The problem is that when I get tempted is always in the worst place. You're like at San Diego Comic-Con and there's a really good slabbed one, and you're like, well, it's going to be ticked up because they've got the biggest audience there. I'll get one eventually. I've got the Death of Belit. I've got issue 100. I've got the first Red Sonja. I've got some other ones, but I don't have a Conan 1 yet. So someday it'll happen.
With your current run, you might be hurting yourself on what you pay for that issue 1, just so you know.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. No word of a lie. I've met so many retailers over the last year who have told me that their Conan back issues have really surged, that their back issues of the original Marvel run, their Dark Horse issues, and the old Savage Swords are moving, that they're buying collections that they would have turned down previously, or they would have paid pennies on the dollar for. And now they're really turning. They're turning on eBay. They're turning on in the stores, which feels really cool. One of the things I'll do is, when I was in the UK, I would stop by a bunch of the stores just to say hi to people and shake hands or sign a couple of books or whatever. And a lot of the stores I wouldn't tell them I was coming. I would just be in the neighborhood and I would pop in a store. I did some formal signings, but then I also popped into a lot of shops. And the vast majority of the shops that I popped into without telling them ahead of time, they would nervously laugh and be like, dude, there's almost nothing here for you to sign because we're sold out of all the books. We're sold out of the back issues. And I was like, that's awesome. They're like, no, man, we want you to sign stuff. I was like, it's cool, man. It's all good. They would dig and they would find whatever, an old Marvel thing I'd done, or like, Rick and Morty Dungeons and Dragons or something. And I would sign that instead. But like most of the Conan stuff was like blown out. Like Blackstone #2 came out while we were overseas. And I went into a couple shops and they were like, there's one copy on the shelf. And I'm like, okay, now I just sign it and, walk away or whatever. And they're like, we ordered a bunch. I'm like, I believe you. It's cool. That's great. I love to hear it.
What a treat for a fan, though, to walk in thinking they're just going to get the latest issue of Conan for $5. And all of a sudden your signature's on it. They're like, whoa, this is awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. I had that in Chicago. I went to Chicago Fan Expo and I was there a day early. So I went downtown Chicago and I went to a couple galleries and museums, and there's some great stores downtown, like Jetpack Comics down there and a couple other places. I think this place called Challengers. And I stopped into the store and I just signed a bunch of books. And while I was there, suddenly someone was like, wait, that's the Conan guy? I was like, yeah, I've been wanting to get on the series. I was like, well, now's the time, like boom. So we sold like whatever, a dozen copies while I'm standing there. That's cool, man. That's great for the retailer. And that's exciting for them as well, and it feels great, of course. I still have those weird moments where you walk into a store and you don't want to be like, hey, do you know who I am? Like, I don't want to be a dick,
Yeah.
but on the other hand, I know it can be helpful to move some books. And so
100%.
if I'm in the neighborhood, why not? You know, for sure.
Yeah, I think any owner of a comic book store would be super excited to know you were there to sign some books for them. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's incredible, Jim. Yeah, we got
Thanks, man.
Gary Maloney says, love to see a creator like Jim living his best life working on Conan. Gary's
It does
awesome.
feel like it right now. Yeah, it is very, very special. And I certainly do not take any of it for granted. Like, I have wanted to do a long and transformative run on a book, like a superhero
Yeah,
book, a pulp book, you name it, for a long time. And I, kept feeling like, oh, maybe it'll be this one. Oh, this pitch or this, concept. I hope it's the one that's really got legs. And I've done some solid stuff on other books, but it's never had this kind of rocket fuel. And so it feels very, very special. And yeah, man, you can't take it for granted. I know that it isn't something that comes around very often. And so you really want to kind of not only put your all into it, but celebrate it, like
yeah,
celebrate these little victories as we're coming to the end of the year. And, I know it was American Thanksgiving and all that stuff. There's a lot to be thankful for. And I feel very, very fortunate, that we've been able to channel this energy into something so exciting, and that the readers see in it what I saw in it and what I keep seeing in it all the time. That
yeah.
makes it even more special, for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah. Rob says he's getting one issue of Savage Sword every time he goes in the comic shop.
Awesome.
He also brought up the Super 7 line of figures are
Oh
actually
yeah. So I
almost
personally am not a
Schwarzenegger.
big I'm not a toy guy, so I don't have tons of toys around the house. I have a handful I've been given over the years, but I don't seek them out as much. So every so often people will bring stuff up to the show and they're showing me like, oh, have you seen this action figure, this statue, this whatever. Obviously the Blackstone one, I'm super jacked because it's like, holy crap, that's based on my story and things like that. But most of the time I'm not keeping track of them. So I hadn't seen the Super 7 stuff until last year. I had seen them coming out and I was just like, oh, these are really extensive. Holy crap. The other thing I see more and more of now, I'm on a couple of the Conan collector groups. I don't always post, but I sort of, they asked me to join and I said, I'll be there, but I'm not always going to be able to respond and stuff. The collections that people have are staggering. Like the Conan room, like the man cave that is all done up with the statues and the Arnold posters and the autograph stuff and the swords and all that stuff. And you're just like, holy, this is a thing. Like this is, and almost always there's the Super 7 or the toys or the statues there. And you're just like, damn, like that is a staggering amount of stuff. And you forget how long the character's been around and how much stuff has come out. And then you see someone's like mega collection and you're like, okay, got it. I am humbled to be a small part of this crazy thing,
Yeah. And it's, on our side, and I'm sure just knowing you a little bit, but there's a lot of responsibility, Jim. I mean, you're like handling a character that people have invested so much into because they love it so much. And that's why I think you're seeing people take away, these issues every month, and why you're so successful with Conan, because everyone realizes, I think you have that same amount of respect for the character that we all have when we're reading it. And
and again, I don't think respect means don't take any risks.
No, 100%.
I think it's just that there's certain immutable elements that you have to understand are at the core of that character, and that you recognize those and hopefully make the most of them every single time. You know what I mean? Like, but absolutely, like it is a responsibility because the character has been around so long. It is generational. The number of people who come up to me are old enough to be my dad, and they're like heartfelt shaking my hand and telling me, I've been reading since the comics since 1970. I have been collecting longer than you've been alive, and I feel young again, or I am exuberant, or I have a regular subscription at a comic book store for the first time in 25 years. Thank you. Like that is, it's hard to put in words, man. It's very, very, very special to realize that you've been able to reignite something inside people the way that you feel about this thing, and that they recognize it and have been able to tell you. It's just so cool, you know. And I certainly, I keep saying it, but I'm so grateful, you know, for the ability to do it. And I'm grateful that our team is all pushing in the same direction to be able to make it happen. And that's got to be true, I think, of any icon, you know. And so I have never had the chance to write, like, I've written a couple Batman stories, and I've written whatever, Captain America in the Avengers, or I've written some Iron Man or things like that, but I haven't had the chance to really grab the baton this way and just run like hell in one direction with a character in a world the way I have here. And hopefully what it's done is, first of all, given me the confidence to understand why this works the way it does and what that means, and hopefully also prove to people like this is something that I love to do and that I have a lot of fun with, and that we can make really special stories with, you know, in a cool way.
And Jim, I'm gonna let you go. I want to be super respectful of your time, but before I do, out of all the stories that you've done so far in the first 17 issues, is there one? Right, we have let's see, Bound in Blackstone, Source of the Dead was one of the first. I think that was the first one, right? Vengeance
Bound in Blackstone,
yeah. Out of all the different ones you've done, do you have one that is your favorite so far that you've done, or is that too hard to answer?
I mean, it's weird, right? Because it's like, it depends on how you sort of measure it. Like, I guess I'm going to cheat. I'm going to give you two. Okay. So the Free Comic Book Day issue, you know, the
Battle
the
of
first
the
issue that, no, the number 0, the Conan 0 that we did last year.
Yeah, this one, right?
Because you got it. That one was so special because it was like, you know, Rob and I were working together for the first time, and we had been talking for weeks and weeks, months and months about what this thing could be and how it was going to work and what was special about the character and what we were trying to capture in the stories, you know, in the Robert E. Howard stories, and then in everything else. And so put together this issue called Looking for Lands Beyond. And it's like trying to get back to something very Bronze Age and pulp and true about Conan. And I'm writing Marvel style, like Roy Thomas would, where I'm laying the outline and I'm letting Rob do the page layouts the way he wants, and basically bring the vision based on what he's read in my outline. What he sees, he puts on the page. And then I come back at it with the most bombastic kind of narrative that I can, because I'm inspired by his artwork. And so it's this like feedback loop of inspiration. And I've never done an issue that way. I've never worked with an artist that way. I'm getting this crazy second chance, like lightning struck twice on one of my favorite characters. And there's such good pressure, like, oh man, don't screw this up. But also I this good feeling, this like adrenaline rush, and the pages start coming in and the letterproof starts coming in, and you're like, holy shit, we're doing it. Like, we're really, really doing it. And it felt electric and it felt real. And then I did a Free Comic Book Day signing in one of my favorite shops, which is Third Eye Comics in Maryland. And we had lineups out the door, and they had hundreds of people contact them about getting mail order autographed copies. And I'm getting, my social media is blowing up all day about this book, because it's like this mission statement of, check it out, we're going to do this, we're going to bring you back. And so if you're an old school fan, come get it. And if you're a new fan, like, this is the place to start. So in that way, that feels so unbelievably special to me, that of course it's like a milestone for my career, and it's an emotional milestone for me as a creator. It's very recent, but issue 16, which is our sort of epilogue issue of Frozen Faith, is such a different kind of a Conan story, because it is about faith, and it is about spirituality and what is true, and the ways that to become our own people, we have to rebel from our parents. But then at some moment you realize the wisdom that they had, that you were trying to get away from, that you have to re-embrace some of it. Maybe not all of it, but that there's something true there about your heritage and who you were and who you are, you know?
Yeah.
And that is a very unusual thing in a Conan story, to have that level of spirituality and that level of reflection instead of very inner thought, instead of outward physicality. And that we were able to do it and people didn't feel like we were messing it up, that we were able to bring, there was enough action and there's enough pulpiness to it, but we're saying something a little bit different.
Yeah.
And people really, I got so many heartfelt letters and messages from people. I got wonderful feedback from readers. And it was like, okay, like that we didn't paint outside the lines, but we were still able to push things a little bit in a direction that felt deep to me and important to me. And I wasn't writing myself. It's still Conan, but I'm saying something even a little bit deeper. And then Doug and Diego delivering so beautifully on it in terms of the artwork and just elevating every single plot point and every single vision that I had for that issue. And so it's sort of like bookends, not that my career is over on Conan by a long shot, but it's very recent, you know, and then it's the first issue of this new run, and then it's almost the latest issue of this new run. They both have very special milestones for me. And so they both kind of fight for supremacy in my mind right now in terms of which one is the most special. So I don't want either one to win, you know? Yeah.
I think that's very fair, Jim. Very fair. Thank you. Well,
Thank
Jim,
you.
I always love talking to you. Thank you for coming back again. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you and how much I appreciate the heart that's going into Conan. And
thank you.
So much to be happy about. And I'm so glad that they locked you in for a few more years. So
yeah, man. It's an awesome feeling.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. It's well deserved.
Thank you.
Just looking at other YouTube pages, and I always do my end of the year, what my favorite one title is, and Conan is on a lot of people's lists as the title of the year.
Very cool.
So just know that I think but there's so many people that are really enjoying this run, and we just appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Like whether it's like award nominations or best of year list, like that is it's really, really special and it's really heartfelt, but it's like that stuff is a cool victory lap on the work that comes out. But like the month to month kind of feedback we get from readers and retailers, that's in some ways the most valuable, because it's like the electricity as it's happening. You know, obviously everyone loves to hear that they're doing great things. And I'm absolutely thrilled that we're making people sit up and take notice on the book, whether they're a longtime fan or they're a brand new reader. And I'm super excited for 2025 and beyond.
Yeah. Well, so are we. So are we as fans.
Thank you.
Jim, I want to be super respectful. We've got an hour.
Sure.
Thank you so much for your time.
No
I really appreciate it. And everybody else, hang on. We'll do the giveaway of Conan signed by Mr. Jim Zub.
That's right.
And
awesome.
Yeah, this is awesome, man. Yep, got the signatures right there.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. I'll make sure I put in the description after the video all of your links, all the D&D stuff that you and your wife do.
Perfect.
I'll put that all down there as well. That way people can know where to find all of your other amazing work.
Sweet. It means a lot. Thank you for reading and thank you for your support. Wishing you all the best as we head into the holidays. May they be Hyborian.
Yes, may they be Hyborian. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate you.
Take it easy.
All right, everybody. Thank you, Jim. All right, everybody, hang on. I noticed there's a lot of people that are watching, but not necessarily in the chat. I'm going to give it a couple minutes. We will be giving this away. I appreciate everybody hanging out. I was at San Diego Comic-Con. I was able to spend some time with the entire Heroic team and Jim and Dan. And I have a sign. This is volume 1 of the first, I think it's the 5 issues that Jim did. And then the cover by Dan. There's his signature right there. There's Jim right there. So jump over to the chat. We got Rob here. We got Gary here. Come on over. I don't know if Will is still around, but he was here. Come on over. I'll give it a minute. Get into the chat. And what we're going to do is we're going to do hashtag Conan. So just come into the chat, do hashtag Conan, and then I'll share my screen and we'll do the giveaway. We'll give it a couple minutes, but thank you everyone for hanging out and joining me tonight. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Yeah, the channel doesn't exist without all of you. So really appreciate it. But we'll give it a minute and let's see who joins. In the meantime, man, Conan has been awesome. What a great creator Jim is. I'm so happy that he has taken the reins of Conan. I'm happy that he's gotten his opportunity for a long run. He's such a great, passionate creator. And thank you, Rob. Appreciate it. Might be you, Rob. Maybe you're the winner, man. We'll see if everyone's stuck around or if some others come over to the chat and just kind of put in hashtag Conan. We'll give it another minute. But yeah, I can't tell you how much I appreciate all of you and how much I appreciate Jim. He is just amazing. You know, I was able to get quite a few signatures. I got Joe and Jim over here. I got another comic with Dan on it. So I don't need that many of his signatures. So I'm more than happy to give it to another fan. But yeah, thank you so much for joining tonight, man. It was so good to see everybody. We'll be doing another, I think our next live is January 7th. So if you enjoy our content, we're going to have Daniel Warren Johnson and Riley Rossmo on to talk about The Moon is Following Us. So that's going to be our next one. We have Jason Aaron that we're working with to talk about Absolute Superman. We're just waiting, kind of going back and forth on a date that works for everybody. But we have a lot of really cool stuff coming that I hope you all enjoy. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then on the 20th, right before Christmas, we have the amazing Jimmy Palmiotti. If you don't know, or if you are a Spawn fan, he is taking on a new title from Spawn, the Spawn universe, called The Deadly Tales of Gunslinger. It'll be more of a Western version of Gunslinger, that version of Spawn. So we're going to talk about it and read issue 1 together, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So December 20th, live, we'll have Jim Palmiotti. January 7th, we'll have Daniel Warren Johnson and Riley Rossmo. And then coming soon will be Jason Aaron. We're talking about the first 2 weeks of January. And I got a whole bunch of other people that we're working on different times, dates, and all that. And then Mark Silvestri is going to be returning again because he has The Darkness. So he's going to be relaunching The Darkness. He will be writing and doing some of the art, which I'm really excited about. One of the best artists I've ever seen in my life. So we have quite a few lives, and then we're constantly pumping out some amazing content. I hope you feel we had the legendary artist creator, Joe St. Pierre, who has worked on every major character both in Marvel and DC, who actually has a sketchbook right now on zoop.gg that you should check out. It has a lot of his sketches from all of his work over the last 25 years. He was on yesterday, which you could watch now as well. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Rob, it seems like you're the only one in the chat that has put Conan. So if you could, I'm going to put my info here. If you could send me your address, I would love to send you this Conan trade signed by Jim and Dan. But everyone who has been watching, thank you so much. Without you, there is no World at War comics, so I appreciate it. Also, I do have my Kickstarter for issue 3 of Kingsville. It's on Kickstarter right now. We're only about 4 days in. We're already at 25% to goal. Just check it out. Go to Kickstarter, type in Kingsville, and you'll see it right there. Amazing art. I had 2 new artists do covers for me. Jordan Noir, who is amazing. You bet, Rob. Thank you, man. I really appreciate you. And then we had Omar Francia, who works for Marvel, DC. Both of them did a cover for me, and check them out on Kickstarter. They are awesome. And then Dan Zay, our interior artist, also did his incredible cover that he has always done. So we have 3 different versions for you. Kingsville issue 3. Things are getting crazy. Definitely more of a mature audience just from the fighting and whatnot, but check it out. I think you're going to really like it. But everyone, have an amazing night. Thank you so much for joining me today. And yes, stay tuned. We have a lot of interviews that'll be dropping over the next couple of weeks, and we appreciate you. All right, everyone, have a great night, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody.